But first of all, I caught the tail end of Colonel Wilkerson's uh, discussion, and I have to share his pessimism, unfortunately, that regardless of how this ceasefire ends, unless there's a fundamental change in the strategic thinking of uh, the major players in the region, especially the United States and Israel, that this ceasefire is just basically a holding action until the forces can reconsolidate and begin to complete their strategic mission of a greater Israel that suppresses Palestinian state aspirations. So I don't view this ceasefire as a automatic stepping stone towards the fulfillment of Palestinian statehood. But I will say this ceasefire is not an Israeli victory. We need to understand that. How we quantify it, if we can quantify it as a Hamas victory, is another question altogether. But I will say strategically this: when Israel sets out, as it did, its strategic objectives of the physical destruction of Hamas as a military organization and the absolute eradication of Hamas as a political entity, and you have a ceasefire today where Hamas is as strong today militarily as it was on October 7th. They haven't yielded the battlefield. I think people should understand that. Where while the Palestinian population may have been evicted from northern Gaza, Hamas has never been evicted from northern Gaza, and Hamas continues to resist from northern Gaza, and Hamas continues to inflict casualties on Israel from northern Gaza as well as all of Gaza. So the fact that we have a ceasefire that you know allows Hamas to retain this military capability is a defeat for Israel. And the fact that Hamas was in the same building in Qatar and actively participating in negotiation means that they are politically viable. Israel has failed. Israel has not succeeded. Hamas has won. But it's a Pyrrhic victory in many ways because the price that's being asked to be, or that has been paid by the people of Gaza, is a price that can only be justified, if it could ever be justified, with the creation of a Palestinian state. And right now, if there is a pathway to a Palestinian state, it is a very convoluted pathway that requires many things to happen that the political and economic elites in the United States and Israel simply don't want to happen. But I will say this, that something happened in the last week, and well, actually, it's been happening since November, that changed the dynamic of this, and that's Donald Trump. Um, we need to recognize whether you love Trump, hate Trump, I don't care how you feel about Trump. Trump changed the dynamic, the negotiating dynamic here. Without Trump's intervention, there would not have been a ceasefire. I feel comfortable in saying that. Israel had no intention of allowing a ceasefire to take place. Israel had been pushing back against any effort by the Biden administration. The Biden administration hadn't shown the ability to to impart its will on Israel. And I believe that Netanyahu would have basically extended these negotiations until the end of Biden's administration, and then hope that uh, you know Adelson's widow's $100 million purchase of Donald Trump would pay dividends in terms of Trump, putting all the pressure on Hamas and its supporters and no pressure on Israel. The opposite has been the truth. Apparently, Trump's negotiator set a whole new uh, environment, political environment. Basically, to sum it up, it was to tell the Israelis to sit down, shut up, and make this deal happen. When was the last time an American spoke to an Israeli official that way? Um, Now, I've been reading, there's some nuances to this. There's some belief that it's sit down, shut up, make this happen, and we will reward you down the road. Not just sit down, shut up, make this happen because bad things, Trump is going to come in and put pressure on Israel. We don't know what's going to happen after January 20th. That's the great unknown. But we know the following. We know that Netanyahu is fatally injured politically. He's fatally injured. We know that his government will probably not survive this. Ben-Gvir has threatened to resign. He may have already resigned. I don't know. Like I said, I haven't been up to speed on what's going on in Israel. But the coalition that is in place today governing Israel is not long for this world. We know, for instance, that Netanyahu is being under heavy pressure from the Israeli courts about crimes he has committed in deceiving the Israeli people about the hostage situation. Seymour Hersh wrote a very detailed article about this, I think in October, and maybe where he outlined the crimes committed by Benjamin Netanyahu. And these crimes are not going away. This isn't the corruption case that has been swept under the rug. This is an active, ongoing case against a sitting prime minister for misusing intelligence information and for deceiving the Israeli people about the hostages. And I think when the hostages are released, and I do believe they will be released, the true scope and scale of the crimes committed by Benjamin Netanyahu's government in this regard, in terms of using the hostages as a weapon of political empowerment, will cause his government to collapse. And that changes the dynamic inside Israel. The other thing is Trump, I don't believe, is looking for a continuation of conflict. I think what Trump is looking for is a cessation of conflict and the injection of stability. And this ceasefire opens up a lot of opportunities in that regard. For instance, we now have a pathway to bring an end of the conflict between Ansarallah, the Houthi in Yemen, and Israel. That wasn't possible before. The Houthi were not going to back down. They were not going to surrender. They were not going to cease their operations until their objectives have been met. And with this ceasefire, their objectives will have been met. Trump has also indicated that he does not want the ceasefire in Lebanon to collapse, which means he will put similar pressure on Israel. And Trump has also indicated that he is willing to negotiate with the Iranians to try and create a new framework of relationships. Whether all of this succeeds, I don't know, but none of those factor into the Netanyahu strategy of sustaining this conflict to build a greater Israel. Trump is looking for stability, and that's different. And then the other unknowns are, with Hamas continuing to survive, what does that mean, for instance, for Saudi Arabia? See, it'd be one thing if Hamas was defeated, if Hamas was eliminated, if Gaza was Israel. That's a new reality that Saudi Arabia has to deal with. Saudi Arabia has committed now that they will not normalize relations with Israel, and that is an essential element moving forward in terms of any regional stability, is the normalization of relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel. They won't do that until there is a Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital. Now, they're not going to get that. But my point is, Trump, I believe, is going to be searching for a way to get Saudi Arabia to normalize relations with Israel and yet keep a pathway open for a Palestinian state. And that's even more imperative now because of the survival of Hamas. This is a problem for Israel. This is a problem for Abu Mazen, Mohammed Abbas, the Palestinian Authority. Today, I don't think there is a doubt in anybody's mind who is the preeminent leader of the Palestinian cause. And that's not the Palestinian Authority. That's not Abu Mazen. It is Hamas. Hamas is the leader of Palestine because of what they have accomplished here. This ceasefire is not a defeat for Hamas. This is a victory for Hamas, an empowering moment for Hamas. So we have this new reality being created, but we don't know what's going to happen going forward. As Colonel Wilkerson has rightfully pointed out, there are political players that are looking for this as just being a pause before they continue what they've done. But I believe that in Israel, we're going to be seeing some fundamental changes inside Israel politically. I think that this hostage situation has created a new political dynamic that is going to transform Israeli politics by disenfranchising Netanyahu, Ben-Gvir, and the others. They will be forever disgraced by the lies they have told the Israeli people about the hostages in an effort to deflect responsibility for the failure to get the hostages home on Hamas. And the reality is, it is Netanyahu's fault, singularly, only Ben-Gvir's fault, and they will pay I believe, a fatal political cost. And with the collapse of Netanyahu, we have a whole new dynamic that creates a level of unpredictability. So if you're an analyst dealing with the Middle East region, I guess you can be happy for one thing. You'll have job security for some time going forward, because this is a very fluid situation that's going to require people to roll up their sleeves and delve into this, because it's changing. It's not something where we can just continue to repeat the same old analytical patterns of the past. We are looking at a transformation of reality, and we're going to need good minds to be digging into it. But thank you very much for inviting me. I think that's about the limit of what I can offer on this topic at this time.